Okay, so I wanted to make a short clip walking people through a video game I coded in my 3D modeling software. So once upon a time, I was taking a little course called Maya Scripting as part of my game development and design program at VCAD. Since the course itself was teaching the coding language Python, and this coding language is basically never used in any part of the gaming industry, well, let's just be kind and say this was a filler course, or more of an elective, which honestly makes it even more ludicrous that I spent likely upwards of 25 to 30 hours creating this game code. Probably more like 40 to 50 hours if I'm honest. And I created this game code for a program that was literally never intended to have a game system coded into it. So while my classmates were making things such as a code to make duplicating and placing objects easier, or making a gun shoot a rocket, I was like, no, not me. I'm going to make a game dev debut by using Python to code a platformer game into this 3D modeling and animating software. Because that totally makes sense. I started off just trying to write code for the level itself. This alone was pretty difficult, as I had to teach myself to write code that not only spawned an object in a certain location, but also edited the object, such as deleting faces and adjusting vertices and so on and so on. So, lo and behold, this was no easy feat. After wrestling with the build of the level for what felt like an eternity, I ran into another far worse problem. How do you even make the character move around? Keep in mind, I am no game development guru, just some guy with a stupid idea. So, do I use gravity effects? Do I translate the object? Do I animate the object itself? No, no, and no. The best solution I could come up with was to have the actual level be animated to move under the player character, using a simple keyframe animation and then use the translate on the Z axis to move my character side to side. So after spending another 8 hours-ish attempting to solve the jump problem, hoping to have the player character be able to perform a jump, I had to, after countless internet articles and Reddit forums, concede that jumping was not going to happen, or at least not going to happen without many, many, many more hours of frustration. Especially since I had already spent about 1,000 hours too much time on this project, and I had other far more important assignments that required my attention. So after lots of cursing and head slapping and more cursing and even more head slapping, I decided on a new design. The Crash Test Dummy Racetrack Level Design Game Development Debut. I spent way too much time on this pointless, ludicrous Maya coding project. Anyway, the concept was really simple. I would program a straight racetrack and then animate it to move under the player character. Now, remember that even the animating, like literally everything else for this game, was done using Python scripting, like zero cheating. After the track was made, I programmed random obstacles to spawn onto the track at different widths and locations, and to follow the same animation strategy as the track itself. So basically, the track moves under the character and the obstacles move towards the character. At this point, I basically made a cube and messed with different ways to create collisions on the map. Like basically I needed a way for the player to not fall through the map and to actually run into the obstacles when he hits them. That's physics. And turns out Python has pretty legit limitations when it comes to this sort of code. For example, it has no clue how to employ gravity, or at least it doesn't know how to employ gravity properly. So, after another less than enjoyable struggle and frustration phase, I came up with a solution. The car would be an active rigid body. Basically, when it hits something, it's moved. And the obstacles would be passive rigid bodies. So you can run into them, but they don't move. So the obstacles were passive, the track was passive, and the car was active. Sweet. The worst is behind me, right? Well, no. Because what is a racing game without a freaking Honda Civic base model looking race car to drive on that bad boy, right? So yeah, let's just say figuring out the code to literally build the car out of cubes and cylinders while also using code to edit those shapes and delete different faces and move different edges and position everything perfectly using code really wasn't that bad in direct comparison to figuring out the code for actually coloring the car and the rest of the level. So yeah, Fast forward another who knows how many hours of pain later, and I've kind of sort of figured it out, kind of. Basically, I understand what the code was doing, but I definitely had to hijack another person's code off Reddit and then modify that code to fit what I needed to do. So what did this final piece of code do? Well, it made a shader and then made the shader have relations with the faces of the object by plugging its node into the face of the object. Now, that's pretty much what it did. So yeah, now that this was all said and done, I just had to create code for the interface, the actual buttons and stuff. And eureka! We have more or less a game. So yeah, we'll just play through it for a second here. I hope you enjoy. And I have also attached a link to the Python code, which should work with any version of Maya from 2022 till now. If you have the software, then give it a spin and let me know. Thanks for watching.